We're back with our second episode of Supy Talks, filmed here in London. And today we'll be speaking to someone who's seen hospitality from every angle. Travis Fish is the founder of Ops Club, a community where hospitality ops people can share their opinions, learn from each other, and strengthen their community. Prior to Ops Club, Travis was Group Operations Director at Comptoir Libanais. Prior to that, he founded and exited the restaurant chain BabaBoom. And he's also worked in the world of tech as COO at Rotageek. And the earliest part of his career, he was the group regional managing director for Nando's in the UK. Welcome to the show, Travis.
Thank you very much. Really happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, you've got so much ops experience, specifically in hospitality. I want to get into what the industry did teach you and didn't teach you in your early days and how you've kind of risen into this position. So let's go back to the beginning. When you started in ops, what kind of support or guidance did you have, and what do you wish you had?
I mean, I'm very lucky. I started my my career in a really big structured organization. I worked for Mitchell & Butlers. It was like super awesome to get so much I guess like training. I was part of a graduate scheme, so again very lucky to get like this really structured training in all different departments, like a really good grounding in ops, but also just in like work and business and all that stuff. So I think that stuff was really good. I think what I could have learned earlier, I think I sort of attacked everything with like a huge energy, and like the more I do, the more my team will then do, and like I sort of got success through like sheer force of will,
brute force,
and it's fine, and like you can get results doing that, but ultimately, like, you know, like for example, like with like perennially, you know, A boards have got the wrong posters on, right? And like if I constantly talk about that, and every time I go to a site, I pick up on that and I remind someone and blah blah, like I'll get the A boards to be more correct. But actually that's not like getting people to buy into the idea that the A boards need to be correct, and then they do it themselves.
Not necessarily the most efficient way, but
and it's like not sustainable, and it's super hard to scale it, and like, you know, maybe you can do that for a small group of businesses. Harder to do it at bigger scale. Probably really hard to do it as an ops director. So I think like learning, I guess, how to do that is a different style of like, I don't know, maybe it's not even leadership, but you know, just like a different style of management. So that's definitely something. And I think like, you know, like we talked about actually when we talked about P&Ls recently, like commercial understanding, like, you know, it's almost quite embarrassing to look back on like, I guess my level of commerciality when I started out, and like the fact that actually no one really ever sat me down and really explained it. So those two things I would love to I've learned earlier.
Totally. And I get it. And it's interesting that you have that perspective, because I think once you're in something and you're learning things and you hear a lot about what's going on, it's hard to zoom out and think about what you would have known at that time, because you've kind of lost that objectivity. Excellent. That's great. And obviously Ops Club is a community of hospitality operators. Where did that come from? Is that something born out of something you felt early in your career?
I don't know. I think so. It's born out of the fact that as I guess I've got a bit more senior, like I've started going to more events. I've been involved with more people outside of my like immediate day job. And I got a lot of energy from that. I got a lot of learning from that. Like, you know, maybe you're really lucky and the people you immediately work with are the people that teach you everything and, you know, develop you. But often it's other people, and it's people that, you know, you don't work with, or you don't have a manager who, you know, is going to be that person for you. So I got a huge amount from networking, and, you know, networking's a hard word to really describe, but like I got a lot from meeting more people with different experience. And so I guess when I started working out like where operators do that, especially over the last kind of 18 months, there really isn't a place. And, you know, there are some sort of conferences and things that are pretty expensive to go to. I'm not sure if I was a general manager, I'd feel massively comfortable even if I wanted to spend that money going. So I want to create, and I'm not there yet, but like I want to create a community where all ops people can, live and connect, and, networking, learning, create a thing that doesn't exist. I don't really think it does exist, and I think it's almost a community of people that probably need it more. They are people who are generalists. They need to know lots of different things that they may not know, and I think and it's it's quite a tough, isolating job where you don't do a lot of outward looking.
Well, I think it's probably nice on one front, meeting people from outside your direct work environment who are going through similar experiences, but also maybe people that haven't come through a structured training, something like Michelin butlers, who have maybe fallen more into their role or come from a smaller background, would value it quite a lot.
And there is a lot of different routes into hospitality. You can be independent, you can be in super structured environments, you can be high end QSR, all of those kind of things. So like, we're all doing the same stuff, but in hugely different ways, and there's like cross learnings. And so again, I'm not there yet, but I think there is this value in people, hearing those things from each other and sharing tips and tricks. And there is no easy way to do that at the moment. And in some ways, I think probably throughout a lot of my earlier career, it sort of felt like it wouldn't have been that cool to if I was working in Nando's to go and like learn from somebody in Pizza Express. And like, actually, why isn't that cool?
Yeah, exactly. And do you think, I've seen on some of your events, you mentioned that it's like not like boring networking or something to that effect. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that, I can't remember the exact phrase, but it is something like that, is, I guess, and maybe not even boring is the right word, but like not scary networking, and like, not all on you as an individual. Like, it takes quite a lot, I find, to turn up at a networking event, to like have the confidence to go up to a random person and say, hi, I'm Travis, like, this is me. I find that quite hard, and I'm probably erring on the more outgoing end of the spectrum. And so I guess what I'm trying to do with networking is facilitate it in a way that makes it really easy to do. So the events are, actually effectively free. Like, we raise a little bit of money for charity, but the events are cheap to go to, £10 generally. And part of what you will get there is you'll get a facilitator who will make sure the group has conversations, introduces people, facilitates questions and exercises, and sort of just like keeps things going. In a way that doesn't end up, two people standing next to each other sort of going like, what do you do and what do you do? And it can be quite hard then to even get out of that conversation, get into a new one. And, I was at a networking event at one point and recently, and, I had a really great conversation with someone, but it ended up being over an hour. Because how do you get out of that? Like, because once you're in it, good point. You want to be like, cool, I've met you, like, I'm going to take your contact details, and actually like, but now can I go meet 3 more people?
It's good
to
get
stuck.
It's good to have a format that will actually facilitate that. I get that completely. Okay, amazing. Ops Club sounds amazing. Everyone should go to the events. But I want to dig into a bit about like what a modern ops leader is. You've done it across a number of well-known and kind of fast-growing smaller restaurant chains. So how has your view of great ops changed over that time? And what is great ops?
I think ultimately I've become less of a perfectionist, and probably more of a realist. These days, I guess I would say I'm not chasing like perfection. If you're running, any number of multi-sites, let alone people who are running hundreds of sites, you aren't going to be perfect all the time. What you can try and be is like consistent, like everyone doing broadly the same things or broadly things in the right way that they're meant to be doing most of the time, or with the best intentions. So I think consistency and perfectionism, like I think again I started my career very idealist, why isn't everyone perfect, or this stuff is all sort of individually fairly easy. Definitely things around perfection. I think like again I probably started off quite idealistically around like, this person, that they will be able to learn that, they want to do that probably because they say they do, and but ultimately like any team single site or multi-site, like you're only as strong as the weakest person, and they may be weak because they don't know, they may be weak because they don't really want to do the job, whatever it might be. But like you can, you got to be a realist sometimes, and like you can't just fix everyone and fix every problem. You need, the key thing you need to be focusing on is getting as many of the absolute rightest people in each role in the room doing whatever. Otherwise you're just pushing water uphill.
So would you say that earlier you might just keep trying to fix something, and now your decision making is
and just I guess be more clear in my decisions? Like, in a world where maybe you've got a restaurant or a site not performing, and you go and you speak to the manager, and they're like, oh yes, I am trying this and I'm doing that, but actually at some point there has to be accountability on the fact that there can be all of the reasons and all of the excuses that any one person might want to make, but at some point, no, like that thing is wrong, it's not acceptable. Like you need to do it better. And I think earlier in my career, it doesn't mean I'm not a fairly nice person, but like I think I would have been I wouldn't have really even got to that point of realizing that there is just like there is an end here where actually we can't have excuses, we need to have better performance, whatever it might be. A-boards is a good example.
Oh, that makes total sense. Okay, great. And I think I'm interested to understand, how do you balance like structure, like more rigid structures, and giving autonomy and ownership when you're handling 27 sites? What's the right balance there? Because I guess you want people to feel like empowered, but you do need some levels and controls.
Yes, you definitely do. I guess first and foremost for me, like, is trust. Like, people don't really earn trust. They they have it from day one. Like, you get trust. Like it's a ticket. Not sure if it's a ticket to play or not, but it's given. And it can be lost, I guess. But like, it's not earned over time. So like, you have trust, so you make decisions, you are accountable, you do things, but you're trusted to do your job. I think with that needs to come accountability, like we just talked about. So, if you don't do it, like that, you understand that there are consequences, and just, like that you will be noticed, it will be picked up on, it will be talked about, you must try and do better. And again, there's always reasons, and there's always like, oh, it's, that there's a very reasonable reason, but like ultimately, like everyone must be largely hitting, I guess, the right level in different areas. And then I think you're right, like ultimately, in this day and age, you want as much good structure, like especially if you're running something multi-site with largely the same, let's say, brand or offer. You want good systems and processes and technology, really. Like, so that's quite easy. It's not about like taking away decision making or taking away autonomy, but like, why have every manager, I don't know, ordering stuff individually from places when you could centralize it all on one order sheet, and it just, like, you want to make it easy for people to do their jobs. Like, the job is hard, the job is quite diverse. Most of it is like managing people and customers. All of the other stuff should be made as easy as possible.
That's a good point. Where you can build systems that help people make the right decision more often, save them time, so they can spend time on the things that you can't automate, like that one-on-one with someone, or training someone on how to use a particular piece of equipment or how to speak to a guest. That's interesting. Cool. I really like that. And do you think that what's required of a ops leader in hospitality has changed over the time you've worked in it, or is it still fairly similar fundamentals?
I think it is fairly similar fundamentals. I would imagine we may be about to go through some change where like technology becomes so much better that like the insight we get as an ops team means we can just we can be much more effective. Like, we'll be getting not just analytics, but we'll be getting recommendations and pointers and reminders where like we do a much better job of like managing. I think day to day we're still quite similar. Maybe that's a bad thing that we haven't moved on. The job is probably largely the same as it was in lots of ways 20 years ago. I think the thing that's changed is it's much harder to make money. Like, there's no easy, there's not very many easy P&Ls out there. And so you need to be better than ever at managing cost, through the whole team. you know, managing costs, controlling things, you know, flexing to how things change. You know, the world feels even more variable than ever. So yeah, you have to watch every penny. And I guess everyone needs to understand that more. Like you need like your whole team to understand that. You can't have like general managers who are just like, I don't know, great at the service side and that's what they love. They have to also be pretty astute now. Otherwise, I just think it doesn't work.
That's really interesting. Like from the floor to the chefs to the ops team and central office team. Could you then give me an example of how people in different rungs and roles can take more ownership for cost? Like, what's a practical example?
I mean, there's like hundreds, I guess. I think it's like if people understand the reality of any one of their businesses or place they work, or even like a KP or, you know, a team member who's pretty new. Like if they understand how that restaurant performs and, you know, let's imagine it's not making as much money as it needs to. And again, I think we talked about this once before. Like, I want everyone to understand that like it's not evil to make profit. And that we do need to make some profit, otherwise businesses can't exist. And, you know, like your job wouldn't exist and my job wouldn't exist. And so like I think that's a really good basis for then people being able to, you know, and people talk a lot about acting like owners, and I think it's a good mentality. But I think people need to understand it in the context of we have to have a business that makes money so that the business exists. And then we can do other stuff with that money. You know, we can grow the business, grow opportunities. But I guess like the really niche, the example is everything that happens. Like the example is, you know, where we just had lunch. The general manager there, he was telling me a story recently about how bin bags, so, you know, like lots of bin bags are really expensive. They cost like multiple pounds a bag.
Because you have to buy them from the council.
Maybe even more than that now. But what he will now do is use the cheaper bags, like a cheap bag, to line his bags so that he can get more in them. Still like within the limit of the bag, but otherwise the bags break. And like, so actually he's, you know, worked out some incredible stat of like how many hundreds of pounds a month he'll save if he can properly fill his bags, etc., etc.
Great.
And like it's people having the desire to think that deeply, which I think is really interesting.
And do you think then in restaurants people their targets align with, you know, that? As in, do you think that there's goals and targets that have driven that person in that restaurant to make that decision, or was it maybe more through training, development, or just kind of their character?
I mean, I think some people are better problem solvers than others. So some people are always looking for what could be different or better or another route. So, but again, you need to take those learnings and put them across other places. So like when that idea comes up, everywhere where they buy bin bags from the council, you know, that's something you should train out and like replicate. But I guess and there are people who are, I guess, just in general more financially motivated. So like most ops people will have some sort of bonus scheme that is tied to like sales and profit. I guess I don't know if they're always clear or aligned enough with like the business performance to really drive change. Like if you were really going to try and incentivize someone, you know, whether they're a chef, whether they're a general manager, whether they're an area manager, with like how their business, to make their business perform better, like treating them more like an owner where they benefit directly from the performance of the restaurant, you know, as a percentage of profit or whatever it is, like that is a much sharper way of motivating them. Great.
Excellent. I want to draw a bit from your time in tech, because I haven't spoken to many like ops leaders who've also been COO of a tech company. So I guess the question is, what did you take from your working in tech into hospitality? Has that changed what you work, and vice versa?
I think as a, you know, in tech startups, like I think you obviously naturally attract a different sort of person. So I think there's just a much more structured and sort of like, I don't know, analytical way of doing almost everything, which I think is really cool. So I think I took a lot of like, analytical learning and like, I guess like becoming a bit less subjective, bit more objective. rather than sort of like hospitality ops can be a little bit gut feel and, well, it's always been like this and we've always done like that, so this is probably the right thing. So I think that's one thing that I took specifically, maybe around like my style or like the way I want to do stuff. I think actually some of the stuff that hospitality is great at, and I've obviously always worked with people. I've always, I guess, learning and development and like developing people and supporting people with, I guess, like, progression. And it's quite a big part of hospitality because there's lots of rungs you can climb.
That's true.
So I think that's something that probably in tech startups could be done better. Everyone's so focused on doing the thing that that's no one really gets their one-to-ones, or they get their one-to-ones but they're really just all about about what they're doing for work. And I think there's a bit of a care and attention bit that could come into tech as well. I think really the main stuff I've taken out of it though is like actually just around what, now having like seen behind the curtain a bit, like what are the tech partners that I would like to work with? What makes a good partner versus what maybe doesn't make a good partner? Like how I buy tech, the things I now know that I would always, I don't know, ask for or put into a contract or not. And, I like that sort of, I've done it on both sides, so I can, help bridge the gap a bit.
So what would be those key learnings things you'd take from that time?
I mean, it's I don't think it's anything groundbreaking, but like I think during a sales process you get a really good idea around like, is this the sort of business that's gonna like, are they selling to me or are they like partnering with me? And it sounds sounds a bit basic, but like I think you get I've been through a couple of one specifically recently where I felt very much like I was sort of given taken through a pitch deck or like the slide deck. I was given a proposal, on email straight after. I was followed up with 4 or 5 times about when I'm gonna, effectively sign. And it just was really transactional. And then like the counter side of that is like someone who, had a whole discovery meeting just trying to understand what we were trying to achieve. Then we saw, a demo of that platform in the style of which we talked about. And then you get, your sort of like bespoke proposal. And I guess like a lot of times now we're trying to make tech decisions, because you're going to work with these people. Like you might often want to integrate other systems into it. A lot of tech companies are maybe not huge and not fully developed yet. They're going to keep developing their product. You want to find someone who's going to go in the direction you want to go. And
definitely.
So I think that definitely choosing the right partners I would think a lot about. Like I'd be very nervous if people couldn't show me things they said they could do. Always asking to like see the thing and like, oh cool, like let's, can you show me an account where that feature's live or like show me how it actually works. So much stuff gets lost in context.
Rather than just like running someone through it, letting them like assuming that it's all there, actually make it feel like problem solving together, and feeling like, well, if I don't use this thing I won't be able to solve my problem, or feeling confidence that you can actually solve your problem through this, rather than it feeling like a bit of a bet. Because I think I guess another question would be like, is there a question before, which is, do we need this tech?
And I think there definitely is. Like obviously there are times where you need to go and buy things maybe that you don't have, or you like, I definitely want to replace this thing. But I think sometimes people, and especially new into roles, get very, actually it's not even excited, they get very keen to bring in things they've used before. I don't know if it's comfort or, it's very easy to see something new in a new business and be like, oh, I don't like that because it's not, it's not the same color as the old thing I used. It's, the button's in a different place, and people get very nervous, don't like it. And maybe sometimes the more senior you are, the worse you are at that. Like you want to see the reports the way you did it before. I just think so much time is generally wasted maybe by making changes. And then like the actual benefit is marginal. And you can just completely, refocus people on things for months and months at a time, just to end up with a slightly different looking system that broadly does the same thing, even if, might look better, might integrate with more things, but is it really going to give enough value for the, no one ever calculates cost of change. Very hard to calculate. But
Well, yeah, and that's where I think there's a place for agencies and consultants that help restaurants who've seen it a lot of times before. Someone like you now, who can look at it and go, is this, like, actually almost telling you, no, you don't need it early on is a positive outcome in many instances, because this is basically as good as it gets, or the problem's elsewhere.
And just trying to like make the right decisions at the right times. Like sometimes you can make it too early, and sometimes you can make it too late, and it's very difficult to know exactly when the right time is. Especially, I guess, if you're in it all the time, and you're like, well, it's kind of working. Like I'm doing it all, and it's fine. But then, like, you might miss the point where it would have been quite straightforward to do it, and then you're trying to do a big change for some sort of technology across 10 sites, and actually it might have been easier to do it at 5, and actually, you would have got a lot of benefit. I think sometimes people wait till things are very much creaking or even like breaking, because maybe as the founder, or as the especially at that sort of stage, you hold it all together. That's literally your job, is to balance all the plates, hold it all together. And it seems impossible to like take a pause and actually fix some of the things. Like you're too busy building the plane. Well, not even building it. You're too busy holding the plane together while you're flying it to think about fixing it. Yeah,
that's really interesting. And do you think so then how should an ops director be looking at their tech stack and deciding this is the time to change it? And who else in the company would you bring into that process?
I mean, I think, you want to be really clear. Like, again, I see people all the time where they're like, they start going down this whole route of changing X, Y, or Z system, and then they get into it and they're like, oh, but we're actually in contract for another 2 years still. Like, you've got to start really early being like, what's even worth looking at? Like, if you're still in a 2-year contract, it's probably not worth looking for another year, maybe longer. But I think you need to really try and work out what you want to be different. And like really, even if you can't calculate, how much labor will I save, or how much more margin will I make, but like, is there some specific thing you want to be different? Like, do you want people to spend less time counting stock, or actually use fewer labor hours, and how's that system going to actually make you use fewer labor hours? Because really, that's just a question of how many hours you let people use. You can use pen and paper and use less labor hours. And I think people don't always know the thing they want to achieve before they start. I think often, like not changing potentially, and just changing what you do. You want to use less labor hours, and you've got a system already. I don't think changing a system is going to change that at all.
True. So work towards the objective rather than like trying to plug tech in and hoping it will change it. Because ultimately, like, you need good tech and you need to use it properly.
But probably more benefit comes from once you've got a system for any of these problems. More benefit comes from using it well and having good, management of those things. Than just be like, oh, if we change this system, we'll be 20% better. Like just overnight.
Okay, nice. So changing tack a bit, I want to understand you. So what's one view that you hold true that you think others would really disagree with in regards to restaurants and operations?
I don't know if it's one that people would disagree with, but one that comes to mind that I think we all often forget is that, like, I send a lot of emails, you create a lot of slide decks about like how things should be, a lot of SOPs and rules and email blasts and messages, and we're all doing it, in ops, like to try and get things to be the way we want. Like, I think so much more comes from how you do stuff yourself when you're in a restaurant or a bar, or the approach you take. That, like, I think people forget how much like their actual behavior is a like sets the culture and the tone of what happens in your organization. Much more than whether you email that thing out and you're sending out stuff, use less labor hours, whatever it might be. Like, if you're there, and when you're in a place, you're talking to the manager about it, and you're problem solving with them, or just like talking about how they've deployed hours that day, and showing that you care and notice, and congratulate when it's good, and pick up conversations about it when it's not so good, and just your attitude and behavior is a much bigger driver of change.
Yeah, I hear you. I think when we were speaking another time last week, you were talking about, like, you mentioned that drink driving was seen as it was introducing the drink driving laws was seen as a bad idea at first. There was something, a point you made around that.
Oh, it was to do with, like, technology at tables. Like, there's a lot of divisive thoughts in our industry, especially in casual dining. Around whether, you know, QR codes on tables and, you know, any sort of at table technology is good, right, part of our industry. Does it remove humans and service and all this stuff? And I mean, I cannot foresee a future where there is not some level of technology on our tables that helps us order, pay, you know, split bills, do all that stuff without needing to go and ask a human. Like, I find it crazy that we all believe that the best way to pay an order, or even just pay, let's think about pay, is to ask a human being to walk across the room to a till, press some buttons, print out some paper, bring the paper back to you, you look at the paper, then you to ask that person to go and walk over there again, bring a card machine over to just tap your card. Like, that is unbelievable.
That's not even starting on how it's still done sometimes in America with the whole give the credit card.
Take the credit card away. Exactly. And so, you can watch them on, you know, on Instagram. Like, there is all these videos of the night when they ticked over into the drink driving law coming into effect, and there's people talking about how it's, you know, such a bad idea. It's not very unsafe. Like, it's totally fine. There's similar ones about seatbelts when seatbelts were made mandatory in cars. Just because we don't know it yet, understand it. Like, humans don't like change. So even in the face of, like, huge safety wins, people were still not wanting to change their behaviour. Like, wearing a seatbelt has no impact really on what you do in a car.
No.
And yet people were against it because it was different. Same thing with at-table technology, I think.
I think, that's a really good point. Excellent. And I'm interested to understand, like, you've worked in hospitality quite a long time, and it can be chaotic. So what's one moment where you feel like you completely missed the mark and you would have done something differently had you done it again?
I mean, I think that when we first started BabaBoom, like, it was as startup as it could be, right? Like, there was nothing, there was no one, there wasn't a lot of money. So we had to be incredibly scrappy and incredibly, you know, incredibly scrappy, and I think coming from large companies, like, I'd spent, I don't know, 10 years in big organizations with lots of, you know, process and structure, and, you know, you want to do something, well, you probably, like, write a slide deck about it, and then you talk to someone about it, and then, like, you sort of, like, slowly start doing it, and maybe that change takes a couple of months and blah blah. Like, I sort of brought that into BabaBoom, and it was really weird now I look back on it, and I think it was quite frustrating for my co-founder, because I think she was a lot more action orientated and, like, just, you know, she'd kind of understood the startup world probably a bit more. And like, there are things that we did or created that, like, in hindsight are just ways of making change happen. Like, I think I really struggled with adjusting to that speed and decision-making speed that's needed, and then speed of execution. And, you know, like, I remember really struggling with things like knowing that we needed to, like, you know, reduce our labor percentage, like a few weeks in, you know, like, we have to start getting down, you know, below 50% now, like, and, like, it felt like an insurmountable task to, like, think about it, plan it, talk to the team about it, do it, when actually, like, really just do it. Like, talk to people as and when you need to, start making changes, like,
see what happens.
And, like, just keep course correcting as you go. You don't have to, like, do this huge piece of work and then, like, talk about it on Monday and then, like, think about it for the rotas in 2 weeks that are already planned. Like, just start going. Like,
it sounds like something you might have is aligned with that startup world, though, which is, like, don't just wait and release a product to the world without the world having seen it and then expect everything to change. Just release a bit, see how it goes, change, and keep iterating rather than just making pure big swings. Although I guess it's kind of a big swing to open any restaurant. It's I guess there's two sides.
But I just think like you can't. Yeah, not everything. You don't have to use the same way for everything you do, right? Like if you're running a big organization, you can't just make change on the fly and be really quick to make decisions, because you got to make sure you understand all the ramifications, and people have got expectations of you, team members, guests. Whereas in a startup world, actually no one knows what you do.
True.
So if one day it's this way and then the next day it moves a bit and then it moves a bit, people don't know and they don't care, as long as where you get to is progress. Yeah. So that's something that really hit home when you asked me that one.
Yeah. And I just purely out of curiosity, where did the idea for BabaBoom come from? And would you start it again?
I mean, it didn't come from any super I don't know, historic reason. I think Middle Eastern food is still underrepresented, and there are not many fast casual, Middle Eastern groups of restaurants. There are very few. Comptoir Libanais, obviously a most successful one.
Yeah.
But actually in the we model ourselves on the idea of honest burger type, that sort of single sort of product thing. Kebabs was our thing. Yeah. Sort of premium, a premium burger concept. Yeah, and so that felt like a really good spot in the market back in 2016. And I still think there is a gap. You've got some great people sort of GDK doing sort of the QSR end of Middle Eastern, and you got other wrap and shawarma and kebab concepts, but actually there's no one in the sort of middle and premium end of that. Your honest burger sort of level. So yes, I probably would. I'm not sure I would do it as a founder, but I think it's a gap in the market.
Nice, amazing. And going back to sort of helping people early in their careers, if you could give one piece of advice to every ops manager around cost control, what would that be?
I think it would be learn to create accountability, proper accountability around your numbers. It's so easy to get the same excuses every week or every month in a site or in an area, the weather's been good and that really hurts us, and sometimes it takes too long for people to realize that actually after 6 months of that that's not the case, and actually somebody is not ultimately performing at the level they need to. So I think that, and that which kind of leads into your job is so much easier if you get the 10, 12 or 14 right people running those sites.
What do you look for in people to make sure you have the right team?
I think all of those things that would kind of be related to, I guess, people with a bias for action, people who are curious and problem solving, and bring energy, or bring energy and bring pace, and I feel like they bring a desire to do stuff. I think all those, you need people that are self-motivated to make change and take responsibility and just go and do. Those would be the key things I look for in when I'm interviewing.
Amazing. And I just want to go on to a few things that have come up recently in conversation, and I wanted to find out if you think that these things are overrated or underrated, and feel free to dive in about why. So, mystery shoppers in restaurants.
Underrated.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'm very aware they're just a snapshot, one guest in hundreds a month or something.
Yeah.
But I think when you do them regularly, they are one part of the mix that's important. If you're doing a good job of this these days, you're sort of measuring, you're measuring Google reviews and things like that. Yeah. So you're measuring general sentiment. Yeah. You've probably got a survey. So you're measuring detailed feedback things that are pretty structured, but are also fairly they're not by professionals. So they're again, it could be pretty it could be a bit subjective. Yeah. Then you're if you're measuring mystery guest as well, you're measuring a very, objective, on this day, on this shift, from that person. Was this stuff done, not done, clean, not clean? So I think if you do all three, you get a really holistic view of like service or experience or whatever it is. So underrated.
Yeah, because it's qualitative and quantitative data together. Excellent. Okay, how about, I've heard these discussed quite a bit. Do you think that early wage access tools are overrated or underrated?
Overrated.
Overrated?
Yeah. What? I'm not personally a fan.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. I guess for me, I feel like, and again, I'm not somebody that's personally ever like used them. Like I've used them to basically try and understand it.
Yeah.
But I think it sort of puts you in the hole.
Yeah.
And I think it's then difficult to ever get out of the hole. Like you're basically getting one advance payment, and then you're always just stealing from the future. Unless you happen to then be able to live on less money for a period of time, which is probably not the case in general.
Understood.
So I'm not quite sure the best way to like provide better financial well-being to team members. But I think there's probably other ways that we could do that.
Yeah, nice. Excellent. And then going on to pre-service briefings. Do you live by those?
I think they are underrated.
Yeah.
And like underdone.
Okay. Yeah.
I think most places are not doing them with the regularity and detail they probably should be. And I understand it's hard to do, and we probably underinvest in giving people the tools to do that. But
I guess it also speaks to a time like maybe more higher end dining or more traditional restaurants where there are clear services, whereas all day dining as a concept now is it's almost
and it's made harder by the fact that you don't have you often don't have everyone start shift at the same time. But I wonder if with technology
that's it,
like realistically, if I have the right comms app, like could I record the shift briefing and then send it out to everyone who's on shift that day?
Maybe that's an opportunity for technology.
It's quite cool.
That's
quite
good.
A cool feature actually.
Someone should build something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, last one on these: overrated or underrated chef incentives based on gross profit?
Overrated, I would say.
I
guess rationale being like obviously huge part of their job is to manage and deliver a GP target. I guess the difficulty is if you're incentivizing based on that, I think you are possibly going to drive poor decisions.
Yes. Not thinking about the actual thing that they're there, which is to make amazing food.
And still to control it. But I think there's probably a different way that you would do that.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, that was very interesting to understand this. And I'm going to keep going down this theme just for the end of the episode, because I love finding out where people are eating. So your best restaurants, I want to understand first, what is the best restaurant chain in the UK, according to you?
It's such a hard question. Based on a recent experience in Paddington, I'm going to say Oaxaca.
Oaxaca, nice.
Oaxaca got a new restaurant in Paddington, super awesome.
Okay. What was this experience that was so good?
It's a beautiful place. Like they often have beautiful restaurants, but it is beautiful to quite a big new level. But also just the service. They've obviously invested a huge amount in, I guess, a much higher level of interaction from servers. And it feels very different to, I guess we'd probably both have said that like Oaxaca is casual dining. And actually it feels almost more like American casual dining, very high level of like interaction and service, and it was really like noticeable.
Nice.
It was really cool.
They do some really cool stuff actually. Yeah, amazing. Okay, what's your favourite bar or pub in the UK?
I've made a different choice. I've gone with the Permit Room as a. It's not. I don't know. It probably is a bar.
Is that the one in Battersea?
The Dishoom. By the
yes.
Dishoom team. I really like it. Like it's really chilled. Perfect kind of place that I want to go.
Nice, excellent. I'll have to check it out. And your favourite restaurant for a special occasion?
Probably quite a standard response, but Hawksmoor. Yeah. Just like good and amazing. Amazing vibe. Yeah.
I don't know if they still have it, but when I was after uni in London, wanted to go to Hawksmoor, they had like a BYO offer on Mondays where you could bring your own wine, which was quite cool. Or for people that are really, really into their wine and want to try something different by their steak.
I like it. I mean, I once I got to eat. There's a private dining room in one of them, lovely. And it's like beautiful, and just such a special place.
Okay, excellent. Okay, and what's your guilty pleasure restaurant?
Five Guys.
Five Guys.
Yeah. I'm half American, so you know.
Ah, okay.
A burger
it's
and a shake.
The blood.
Yeah, it's literally in the blood now.
Excellent. Okay, final question on that front. One UK restaurant that you're dying to try?
I mean, again, you're going to say it's more of a pub, but I haven't eaten in the restaurant at the Devonshire.
Ah, okay.
And I would really like to.
Nice.
I mean, it's always just too busy, and I'm never clever enough to book far enough in advance, but I'd love to go there.
Excellent. Well, maybe they'll hear this and book you in. Okay, great. Thanks for your time, Travis. This has been a really interesting episode, and thanks for being so open about challenges, learnings from your career. If anyone wants to find Travis, you'll find all of his details attached to this episode, for his LinkedIn, for Ops Club, for all the other ventures he has going. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope there are plenty of takeaways, and we'll see you next time.
Cool. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.